Welcome back to another episode of Lost in the Farmer's Market Garden Shorts. Today, although this is shot from the lab because it's a little bit easier and we're running out of daylight for this one, this is a reshoot. Originally, for episode 2, I had planned to do a bit on these guys, and unfortunately YouTube doesn't seem to like the video. So we're doing it without the music to see what happens. Now, the subjects in question, these lovely perennial plants, are Antirrhinum majus, also known as Snapdragon. They're in the Antirrhinum family, but they were originally in the Scrophulariaceae family. Now try to say that one 3 times fast. In fact, Scrophulariaceae sounds like an unwieldy and clumsy uncle. But I digress. Now, Snapdragons are originally from rocky areas of Europe. There are some spots in the United States and North Africa where species of snapdragons are endemic, and in fact I did a video on Spanish snapdragons last year. Well, these are the traditional ones you buy at the nursery. 3 different types in the same line, in fact. Now, they're hardy in USDA zones 7 through 11, which means in zone 8A, North Carolina, they're perfectly hardy, which is fine. They prefer a soil pH of 5.5 to 5.8, which is basically acidic soil. Their exposure is sunny but will tolerate partial shade, and I've had these out in full sun, and boy, they are magnificent. Look at these blooms. Look at these blooms. I'm about to burst. Fabulous. Now, here's the interesting thing. When you're talking heights and width, there are 3 different forms in common cultivation. The dwarf form is 6 to 10 inches high, with a width of 10 to 12 inches. The medium size or medium height varieties are 16 to 24 inches tall and 12 to 18 inches wide, while the tall forms are 24 to 30 inches tall and 14 to 16 inches wide. Now, in the case of these plants, I have to specify this is not one big plant. In each pot, there are 4 individual snapdragons, which makes it nice and flush and full. You know, because you don't, I mean, much like with the pansies, you really don't just plant one. You plant a bunch and it fills in and they grow together, and then eventually they outgrow their pot and you're like, dang it! But they have other nicknames. Sometimes they're called dragon flowers or lion's mouth. Now, I'm sure some of you have done this as kids, where you squeeze the flower and the flower opens. This is a biological trait that is adapted to allow certain pollinators access to the nectar and the pollen, and those pollinators, in specific, are things like bumblebees. Honeybees don't have the strength to pop these suckers open to get at the goods. And there are other plants like blueberries which require the vibrations that only bumblebees have the strength to create to get in there and do the do. And I'm going to talk about blueberries in a short at some point after this. Now, snapdragons are in the same overall family as foxgloves, speedwell, turtleheads, and toadflax. Now, in case you're wondering, speedwell is also known as Veronica, and you'll see it as a common perennial sold at garden centers like Home Depot and Lowe's and all that. You know, it's... Oh, yeah. And you'll also see foxgloves. Now, foxgloves, of course, without going on a tangent, are the very plant that drove Vincent van Gogh kind of nutty, and he chopped off his ear and gave it to a prostitute. It's the source of medicine digitalin, or digitalis is their scientific name, and it's used to regulate heartbeat. So doctors gave him some heart medication and made him bonkers. Toadflax you've heard of because, you know, it's an herbal remedy, and of course turtleheads are a unique column-forming flower with uniquely shaped flowers that vaguely resemble a turtle's head. So there's that. Now, snapdragons are actually a perennial, but it's cultivated as a biennial or annual in places with a severe winter. In our climate, a lot of people cultivate it as an annual only, but as you can see, these snapdragons, which were purchased last summer, are doing just fine. They didn't die down to the ground. They were evergreen. They laughed at our 25-degree frost day that happened between Easter and the last frost date. They've shrugged off everything. The only thing they have to worry about is drying out. Their soil drying out in these pots. I'm hoping to plant them somewhere fabulous so they can just be fabulous in the field somewhere. We'll see how that turns out. But anyway, they're considered an annual mostly because a lot of people can't think of them as more than that, sort of like how you think of tomatoes as an annual when in fact if they never freeze they're a perennial. It's weird how short-sighted we can be with some of these plants. This could be a perpetual pollen provider for who knows how many pollinators out there if we used it properly. Now, what's interesting is that the anthocyanin, Antirrhinum, is found in Snapdragons, and it's used as an emollient, an astringent, an hepatic, a diuretic, and an anti-inflammatory. So they have medicinal and cosmetic use, which is a good thing. Makes them much, much more useful. I mean, they're not just a pretty flower. Herbally, and I'm going to put this out here like I do every episode. Before you use anything I talk about or any herbs that you have never used before on yourself, consult all sources that you can. Make sure you talk to reputable individuals about whether or not what you're going to put on yourself is going to cause an allergic reaction, and always test it out first if you're absolutely certain you're going to do it, because there's no telling what you're allergic to or what kind of reactions might happen. I did a video on celery last, and I can tell you right now I found out that celery has a similar reaction in some people as peanuts does. So, there's that. Now, herbally, Snapdragons can be used for colitis, heartburn, and in the form of a gargle as a healing thing for mouth ulcerations. So, you know, like canker sores would be a good example. Now, here's the interesting thing. In cultivation, the dwarf form is most common, though this is most certainly, I want to say this might be the dwarf form that you're looking at here. Also, 2019 was the year of the Snapdragon, which I find very fascinating. I didn't know they had Year of the Flower, but this is a thing, and I'm going to research the heck out of that. Now, talking about these individual plants, you can see that there are 3 different types here. These are not all the same color. This is Liberty White. This over here is Liberty Pink. And in the middle is Liberty Red. I admit I got the varieties because I liked the name. I was like, Liberty, yes! America! Okay, I'm not going to make any more jokes like that. But they have not disappointed me with their bloom last year. They're surviving the winter in these tall, narrow pots. Or their performance this spring. They're about to be beautiful again, and it was totally worth it. Now again, if you use them as a perennial, you feed them, I would recommend hitting them with a product, I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but a product called Hollytone, which fertilizes and acidifies at the same time, and it's all naturally organic stuff. It really helps them keep their mojo. Now, what's going to become of the trio? Well, what I'm planning to do is stick these in a large tree pot, much like I did with the strawberries, and have it off to the side and maintain it. It'll be really cool, I think. I do recommend Snapdragons for your garden. I definitely do. They're a good annual, a good pollinator attractor. They're reliable and tough. As you can see, these are some pretty sturdy woody stems in here. And they come in a wide variety of colors. I mean, yes, you get the whites, the pinks, the reds, but with the Spanish Snapdragons, it was pink and yellow. There are shades of yellow. There are shades of orange. You get the trifecta. I think the only color I've never seen is purple, but doesn't mean it doesn't exist. I just don't know about it yet. Beyond that, again, I recommend Snapdragons for your annual garden, somewhere in that intermediate border for a cooler season color. But if you like this video, please hit the the like and subscribe button, and if you have any comments, leave them in the comment section below. Please try to be appropriate. Lean off the cuss words and whatnot. As always, folks, keep them growing, and I hope to see you next video. Thanks for watching.